the station making history every day.
My sweet home, Chicago.
This is Chicago's talk leader. 89 Kass.
I love that music. It kind of reminds me of 300 Spartans. And, of course, I am not King Leonidas. My name is John Kass. I write a column for the Chicago Tribune 4 days a week. And today I'm on 89 WLS. I want to hear what you have to say. Now we're really getting into it. I've had my coffee. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm starting to wake up. And the number is 591-8900. In the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to have a guest. And we're going to be talking, hopefully, to Dan Michalopoulos at the Sun-Times, a buddy of mine, about Chicago politics and chicken sandwiches and so on, and the sinful chicken sandwich, the Sodom and Gomorrah special that I asked for the other day at Chick-fil-A. But this hour, I wanted to talk to you about the spin that I'm hearing off my own column. Last week, I wrote a column about President Obama hauling off and slapping small business owners in the mouth.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Well, guess what? I wanted to dream of my father, too. But just about this time of day, actually about maybe 45 minutes ago, my dad, when I was a kid, was already gone out of the driveway. He'd work 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. My father, my Uncle George, we had a store on 55th in California. It was called the Gage Park Grocerland. They took everything they had. They mortgaged everything they had. They built it. And for this president to say you didn't build it, in other words, you people who are actually doing something risky, you entrepreneurs, you really owe the government. The government really put those streets, built those streets so that the customers could get to your store. That's a bunch of, I just don't want to say it on the radio, but they have a delay button somewhere. It made me so angry that I wrote a column about it. We didn't have Republican corporate welfare or Democratic buy your vote program. It was just the family alone. My uncle, my dad, my Aunt Mary, my mom. My Aunt Mary and my mom didn't get paid. I think they got paid $2 a day or something so they could buy some lipstick. And to hear the spinning now, in my column I quoted him verbatim, in context, right? So I guess it wasn't as stark as just those, you didn't build that. But in the context of it, the context is, you didn't build that. And I guess now the spin is, the counter spin that I'm reading about and hearing, besides the fact that I'm a jerk, is that it all depends on what the definition of that is. It's ridiculous. It's Clintonish. And I want to talk about it because I've said all along that President Obama will win re-election. I'm a conservative, not a Republican, but I still don't, check my analysis at the door. I still think he was going to win, but I'm kind of getting a sense that there's been a turning point. And I want to talk about it. This column has gone all over the country. It's in so many newspapers. I'm getting letters from all over the country. Rush Limbaugh even read it, which I was honored by. And I want to go to the phones. Marianne, Glendale Heights.
Yeah, anybody who's ever lived up country Maine knows that the government didn't build the roads. They have logging roads up there. They're built by private industry. And we all use them.
Right.
So when the president said, you didn't build that, well, yes, they did. They built the road because they needed a road, and the reason they needed a road is because they weren't allowed to put the logs in the river anymore because of the EPA saying that it was pollution. So they had to put in a road to get their lumber out of the woods. And that's why we have roads up country Maine. And Alaska's a lot like that, too. There's a whole bunch of stuff, infrastructure, that was started by private companies. And the people use that infrastructure, those roads, sometimes even bridges. And then in Virginia, there's something called Natural Bridge that was always there. The Indians used it before people discovered it. It's a bridge that God built it.
Okay.
So,
God built it.
Look at all the infrastructure we had when America was a colony.
What, like the Pilgrims?
Yeah.
Where are you going with this?
Look at all the lighthouses George Washington put up.
Oh, you mean you know what? Okay. Thanks, Marianne. What does Rob on the Northwest side have to say? Because I really can't judge the veracity of George Washington's lighthouses, although I'm sure that...
You lost me at George Washington's lighthouse.
Rob, what's up, man?
Okay,
Come on, this is Chicago. We don't talk about George. We don't even. You know, in George Washington in Chicago, you know where he is? He's in the back room of the city council. There's a portrait of George Washington, and where the aldermen hang out and make deals. And George Washington is leaning forward, his hands extended, palm up, his right palm's up, and the fingers of his right hand are curved a little bit. You get me?
Yes,
and it's a Chicago way.
Loud
okay,
and clear.
So what? And if you go back there and you'll see it for yourself. Anyway, what did you want to talk about?
Okay, earlier in the week, the comment came up with regards to the toll roads. Now, it's a pretty common sight in the Chicago area, toll roads. Okay, and in fact, in Illinois in general, paid for by bonds from the people.
Right.
Built by construction people, maintained at the cost of the tolls by the people who have to use them, because it's really the only decent arterial road to get into and out of the city.
I refuse to use them because I don't want the government tracking me.
Yeah, well, I don't buy an iPass either, but I'm paying the price for it. But the point is, what the hell did Obama have to do with any of these roads? Nothing. This guy thinks he created the earth.
No, he just thinks that government... Look, the guy has not done a lick of work except be a politician I'm going to go... We're going to go... Listen, when we come back, call 591-8900 WLS. We're going to talk about who Obama really is. We're going to a break now. This is John Kass filling in for Jake.
89. WLS. The latest news from the nation and across the globe is just minutes away with ABC News. 89 WLS and WLSAM.com.
John Kass in the Chicago Tribune. I don't know if he voted for Obama or not, but I know he probably won't this year.
But thanks, Rush. Kass sounds a little bit more distinguished.
John Kass.
Kass, yeah.
John Kass.
Very nice. John Kass is actually probably how it should be pronounced, because the original Greek name is Kassidoiani, so it's sort of a Kassidoiani. It was cut in Ellis Island by some fellow who thought that my grandfather should be American, so they chopped his name off right away. We're talking about President Obama.
You didn't build that.
Yes, sir. My father sure did build that, and so did my Uncle George and my Aunt Mary.
You didn't build that.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I
You
do
didn't build
respect
that.
you. I will not moots of the president. I'll tell you this. Sunday's column is who wins the Mutza of the month. And you know what the Mutza is. You don't use the finger anymore because that's sexually violent. We stick our hand out like don't walk. You know that sign that says don't walk? Spread your fingers and just go nah, which means here, take it, or nah, or you say fise edo, which means blow on it. And that has nothing to do with sex, okay? It just means basically get out of here. And the Mutza of the month will be awarded. We'll talk about that in the next hour on 591-8900, along with Chick-fil-A. But right now, we're talking about Barack Obama saying we didn't build that. If you have a business, you didn't build that. But in the interest of fairness and also diversity of thought, I wanted to hear someone who defends the president. Jim from South Holland. Are you there?
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in, Jim. I know we disagree, but I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Well, first of all, you guys know the president said when he said you didn't build that, he wasn't talking about the business. He was talking about the infrastructure, the roads, your teacher, the policeman, the fireman, the services that the government provides. He said you did not build that.
Hey, Jim, does that mean... Jim,
not the business. Why do you constantly turn around the president's words and make it like he said something bad?
Because that's what he said. He said something bad. He said something I disagree with.
I tell you what, instead of saying just, why don't you run the whole statement in context?
I did.
No, you did not.
Did you read the column?
No, run to the...
Jim, did you read my column?
Running on the radio.
Because it takes... Here, I'll read it for you.
What happened?
I'll read it for you. You want to hear it? You want to hear it, Jim? I thought you wanted to talk. Do you want to hear it?
I want to hear the whole statement.
You didn't get there on your own, Obama said. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there. It must be because I worked harder than everybody else. Let me tell you something. There are a whole lot of hardworking people out there. If you were successful, really, so in other words, you didn't build it. If you were successful, someone along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life, he says. Somebody helped create this unbelievable American system that we have that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. That's what he said, Jim.
No,
and it goes on and on.
No. Now, you know the truth.
I do know the truth. That's what I do for a living, buddy.
Yeah, no, you don't. Listen.
Oh, really? Okay, why don't you write the column?
Okay, why don't you talk about Romney, how he went over in England and insulted those nice people with it. He looked down on people all the time. He's a rich crook, and you know he is, and you won't say a word. If Romney wins this election, it's going to be America going to have the rooster's going to come home to roost. Just come on the roost.
You know what, Jim? Listen, personally, I think I've always said he's going to win. I think that there's probably enough people who want stuff from the government that will be, their votes can be bought by government programs or government giving, and that entrepreneurs are outnumbered. And they have always been outnumbered. But the idea of being an entrepreneur was what brought all these people here and what brings people carrying bags and pieces of bread and their children on their backs up across the Rio Grande or wherever they can cross to get into this country. It's about opportunity, not about giving. And that's the difference between me and the President of the United States. I do like him. Here's the problem. I like the man, and I'm not going to demonize him the way some on the left demonize President Bush. I'm not, I won't even give him the Mutza on Sunday's column. I admit it. I'm not going to Mutza the president, but I disagree with him. And on this, I think he's turned, he really hit something that hurt him. Anyway, thanks for calling, Jim, and I know we disagree, but Byron on the South Side, what do you have to say on this?
Hey, John, what is that again, Kass? John Kass. Good to talk to you, man.
Hey, Byron, it's Kass.
I want to say it that way because when Rush said it, I thought, it's Kass, no, it's Kass, man. Give him publicity the right way.
John
But,
Kass.
Byron, you've got that whole Southwest side spelling down, that pronunciation right from 55th and Halsted, where the family was from. So what do you have to say? What's going on with you?
Well, look, what I had to say is a direct refutation of the gentleman who just called, and I use that term lightly. And the reason I say that is because when the president made that statement, he made it on a day that I happened to be available, and I saw the whole thing.
Me too.
He was not referring to roads. He was not referring to government. He was not referring to infrastructure. He was specifically referring to the businesses built by the entrepreneurs who really built it. And it drove me nuts. And it was one of those moments where my head on the inside said, now this is one of those kind of things that would really be great to publicize. If it could get out, then that would be some real problem for the president, because people don't believe this. And if they could see how he really thinks, that would be great. I would love that. But it's not going to happen. This kind of thing doesn't happen that often. Once in a while, a real word of his real thoughts comes out, and it doesn't get publicized the right way. But somewhere, something happened, and this home run got hit, and he deserves every bit of garbage that drops down on him, because that is what he meant. Jim, out in South Holland, I want to say specifically to you first, but on a wide blanket to the millions of people who have been lied to because they either didn't hear the statement or because they want to believe something different, that, hey, look, what the guy said was, you, entrepreneur, your contribution and your value is not quite as much as people say it is. You can't do this by yourself. There's no such thing as a self-made man. And that drives me nuts, because people don't respect the fact that somebody can do something, quote, by themselves. Of course they have schools that they went to. Of course they have family that did something for them. That's obvious. But if they hadn't put their extra work in to make those things happen, to stay up, like you mentioned, the 14 hours, which is
like my father,
time on a consistent basis. Yes.
Not only day after day, my father and Uncle George, and I think Uncle George, if you're listening to this, I love you. My father and my Uncle George, they got up and worked 14 hours a day, decade after decade. And you know what help we got from the government? When the government man came into the store, and I wrote about this in the column, and he had us open the shopping bag and fill it full of ribeye steaks. You know why? Ribeyes? Because they're flat, and they sit in the bag, 20 to a bag. And you know what we had at home, Byron? We had the brown steaks. You know why? Because we couldn't sell those. You know what we ate? We had the brown bananas. You know why? Because we couldn't sell those. So for a guy who was a backbencher in the Illinois legislature, who has all these political hacks spinning for him, who are Daley's people now, who spin for him, and for him to not, basically, what did he do? He had Tony Resco help buy his house. I know the guy. He's not a bad guy, but he was a backbencher who became president within 2 years. And this is what you see.
And it drives me nuts, because there's a little question in my mind as to whether he is using somebody else's rhetoric who was kind of fed to him. And not to say that he's dumb and he can't on his own. He can, but I know he's got a lot of things happening, and I understand that.
Listen,
but the
rhetoric comes from a guy named George Lakoff, who is a he's a linguist. I know. Okay, it's a linguist. He's a linguist, and basically a student of metaphor. He's a very famous and brilliant man, but he's a man of the left, and it's all about the use of the metaphor and how to slip. So they could have the Lakoff Awards, I guess. Listen,
that would be good. Can I throw one last quick item in there?
Yeah, okay, one quick one. We got to go to break. Go on.
The reason I knew exactly what he's talking about is because about 6 months ago, Elizabeth Warren, the Senate candidate running against Scott Brown, used the exact same kind of logic and got herself in trouble. So I knew he was walking down that same crappy road.
And that's another Lakoff Award that comes from the same mind, and it's on the left. Look, they don't think that people actually work. They never worked for anything. They're lawyers, and they use government to leverage money out of people. That's what they do. Okay? People who work are Democrats or Republicans, just want to have their own business. And when we come back on 89 WLS 591-8900, some people have called in who say I'm wrong, and others remember my father's store and my uncle's store. So we're going to talk to them when we get back.